development at Entergy. Now, to introduce our guest for today, Cheryl Mallison, Vice President of Distribution System Operations at ComEd. Kathleen, President of NIPSCO! And our final guest for today, Janine, the Master Certified Career Coach of Workforce Change! Give it up for our crew today!
Fabulous panel today, and the music says it all. It says it all, right? I got the power, right? So we got a bunch of powerful women on the panel, right? Everybody agree? Yeah. All right. So, how does everybody feel after the first 2 days? Right? Hey, Rory, can you go back to my picture real quick? Can you back up? Back up a couple of slides. Okay, what was the topic we had? Was that power of presence with Vanessa? Do I look afraid? Or do I look in contempt? Okay, go back to the slide. I thought that would be just fine, but yeah. So, anyway, what we decided to do this year, and I'll have Clarissa chime in a little bit, we thought we should do something a little different this year. As you know, most of you are in operations and engineering, and we thought for everybody to move to the next level in leadership, you should know a little bit more about the industry, whether it's regulatory, what's going on. You should know what's going on out in the industry as a whole, because as a leader, you need to know those things to get to the next level. So we thought this would be
it all impacts you no matter what level you are in the company. And through discussions, we decided some people don't realize that. Some people think that's not my job, that's not my position, I don't make those day-to-day crucial decisions at the corporate level. But here's the deal, we need to understand them. We need to know how we can participate and be a part of that. And I'm going to take just 10 seconds. I know you're so tired of hearing me talk anyway. Mary Palkovich is the reason I am on this team, and I am up here, and I know she just walked out, but I feel like I am the living proof of a sponsor and a mentor who embraced my talent that I didn't even know I had years ago. And she said, I need you on this team. Okay, I'll do whatever you choose, my boss, so I said yes. I don't know, that was I'm very happy with Mary, and I'm glad she gave you guys these straight, energetic women, and I'm glad you're all here.
So good, so good. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the conference. Again, can I have a hand raised of all the first-time attendees for today, for this conference? Wow. All right, see, this is growing tremendously. We appreciate everybody coming. We have several topics that we're going to talk about today, but first I thought to lighten the mood, I'll ask a few questions that are hopefully don't scare you too much. When I see your eyes, I'm going to know scare you. Here, then I'm going to go. Alright, so first of all, and this is one of my favorites because I have all these t-shirts. You know, if you could be any of the 7 dwarfs. Okay, sleepy, happy, doc, bashful, dopey, and I just took off my grumpy shirt, okay, this morning. I sleep in there. No lie, where's my daughter at? She's still back there? Yeah, I had it on this morning, okay? So, which one would you be? Start with you.
I would be happy.
All right, okay. We'll have the song up for you in a little bit.
All right.
All right, how about you, Kathleen?
I guess I would be sleepy.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started because for sake of time, I want to make sure we get to all your questions as well. Because I know you're going to have a lot of questions at the end of this segment because this is going to be an awesome segment, right? Right. So what we thought we would start out with is one of the topics we want to talk about and make sure we touched on is clean energy. And I'm going to start with you, Kathleen. What are some of the latest things that are going on in clean energy?
Well, probably the one that is most prominent is the President's proposal for the Clean Energy Plan. And this is and I know that there are folks in the audience who probably know a lot more about this, so jump in. But it is a proposal to control greenhouse gas emissions. Through the Clean Air Act, we've controlled NOx and SOx, and those people who work in power plants know that we've got flue gas, controls everywhere. But greenhouse gas emissions is one thing that there is no control technology that's been proven. So the President proposed this plan, the EPA proposed this plan, and essentially proposed that we would have a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions throughout the country from power plants by 2030. But by 2020, most of those emissions have to be on the way. So there are interim goals that are very soon approaching.
So that would really impact those of us that have a high percentage of coal production for our generation mix, because that's where the emissions are really heavy impacted. Whereas like some of the cleaner energies are more expensive to produce, which then in turn impacts customers.
That's right. I mean, eventually we can do anything in our country, I believe. But the question is, what does it cost?
Yeah, and that's what our customers want to know. I mean, how many people find out you work at the utility company? They're like, do you get free electric books? They really think that.
I guess that will be one of my questions. What do you think the consumer, what is the response, I guess, from any of you, from the consumer's perspective, on how this will impact them?
Well, I'll answer and I'll refer to my colleagues. But what the EPA has said is that this is going to actually cost less. Now, when the EPA says this, almost no one believes that. I'm in the camp that
there are no family government employees.
Well, and actually, I would welcome their participation because I just don't get it. Yes, one of the 4 building blocks is energy efficiency, and that can, save energy. But what we're doing is really shutting down coal plants that have some useful life left prematurely, in my opinion. This is not business opinion, this is my opinion. And it makes more sense to me to have a glide path that we use those plants efficiently as long as we can to the benefit of our customers who pay for them. And not shut them down prematurely and wait until we actually have some control technology that works. And then that's my
What I would add is I don't know that customers really understand it. Right? It was funny. We were having some conversations, and there's so many people that still believe that the utility knows when my power's out. I don't need to call, right? So do customers really understand it? I think they hear things in the news, they hear things from the government, and do they really understand what that all means? To Kathleen's point, the EPA is selling this as this is a great thing. When you look at it from a utility perspective, and you look at your RTO, your Regional Transmission Authority, and you look at what the capacity factors are going to be, if we start shutting down a lot of these coal plants, we're shutting down the capacity to the grid, right? And what does that really mean, and what does that look like for the future of the utility industry? I think it's a lot we really need to think about.
And Janine, can you kind of chime in a little bit to kind of bring it back home on how these women and men that are here can get an asset in understanding, what's going on?
Yeah, and I want to tag on just a little bit to what Cheryl just said and point out perhaps the obvious, but if you're here, then you're wearing 2 hats. You wear a utility hat or an energy hat, and you wear a consumer hat. And so an opportunity for you, if you choose to look at it that way, is to become an advocate on behalf of and help educate other consumers gently in small bites about the kinds of things that impact your business and the kinds of things that are happening in the industry. Because those of us who aren't in the business really don't want to know the technical stuff. We want our stuff to be there. We want our service to be there when we need it. But an opportunity for you, and yes, it's a career opportunity too, is to tap into what you know and help other people figure it out. One of the things that was mentioned when we first sat down here is the phrase, "That's not my job." And if there were one thing that I would say, let's get rid of, get out of your thought process, out of your vocabulary, is that phrase. Because when it comes to your business, what you make your job is how you will build your career. And I know that's what a lot of us are here for, to talk about that particular thing. And so the more you know and the more you can convey to others, the more opportunities you have to build yourself to become known as somebody who steps out, who leans in, however you want to phrase that, and takes the opportunity to advocate and become a leader, a knowledgeable consumer who can pass that on to other folks. I think that's the beginnings of the steps just in terms of getting connected, wearing both hats, if you will. We hear that phrase, but wearing both in order to, yes, move your career forward, but also really advocate as another organization.
And I think it's important for every one of you, your own company or wherever you live, what is your fuel mix? What are your sources? Be aware, because it does impact. You see national headlines about coal plants shutting down. Does that impact you? Does that impact your state, your territory, wherever you're working? So if you don't know, make that your #1 assignment when you get back to the office. Look at your mix. It's available. It's actually public information for all consumers. So as an employee, you should be the most educated consumer.
So homework, everybody. You go back, you do that, and you send Clarissa an email, let her know that you did.
Next Friday, close business.
She's your accountability.
All right. Appreciate that. Great discussion. So I think what we'll do is move on to our next topic, Cheryl, and I'm going to start with you. We were talking about significant events that is now shaping the energy industry, and for instance, we have the battery storage, and we have some different things. And we talk about smart grids and the latest, things that are going on. Can you talk a little bit about, how companies are responding to these different things?
Sure. And I'll start off with Hawaii. So if you look at what's happening in Hawaii right now, the government is actually providing a lot of subsidies and incentives to customers to actually put solar power and solar panels on the roofs of their houses. In fact, a lot of the houses that are being built in Hawaii right now are being built with solar panels on their roofs. Because, Joe Normal guy, or Sally Normal girl, can afford it because of the additional incentives and the subsidies that the government is providing. And when you look at it from a utility perspective, I think it was Oahu, they thought they were going to have about 300 megawatts of solar energy and have that back, being fed back onto their grid. Well, they have now 600 megawatts, and they have another 300 megawatts of customers that want to do this and are looking to get approved. So the utility, planned for X, and it doubled, and it actually is going to be tripled. And you look at what that really means from a distributed generation perspective for that utility, it's a big deal, and it's causing them issues on their grid, on their distribution grid. You look at what's happening in New York, and the government there has basically said, hey, New York Utilities, Con Ed, I want you to be able to make it so the customers can sell utility energy. Normal customers, not transmission customers. We're not talking transmission grid. We're talking distribution grid. What does that really mean? And we're not really set up to do that today. One of the things that we're looking at from an Exelon perspective, and we made our first step forward at ComEd in Illinois, is we actually put legislation forward this spring. For any of you that might know anything about Illinois, we have a new governor. The state's broke, so everybody's a little concerned about budgets and not really as much about energy right now. So the bill's still in the legislation, but we have a multifaceted bill, and one of the items in the bill is we're proposing to put 6 10-megawatt microgrids within our service territory. So a microgrid, if you think about it, is, basically, right now, my house, I'm being served by ComEd's distribution grid. Well, all of a sudden, I'm going to put a 10 megawatt microgrid around my house, and it's going to be self-sustaining. With battery, solar power, some type of distributed generation that will be generated in that little, 10 megawatt block, and the ComEd grid then is parallel to that. And then that microgrid can produce power and sell that to the company. If it's not efficient, hey, I'm going to be connected to ComEd's actual grid today. This is all happening on a 12 kV distribution side of the house. So our transmission folks, they've dealt with this for years, right? We have a regional transmission organization. We have transmission reliability dispatchers that deal with this every single day. And they know how much power is being pulled into the system, how much power is being pushed out of the system. That's normal operating. So one of my oversights in my organization that I have responsibility for is the distribution control center. So when you think about the personnel, the people that are in the distribution control center, today they care about volts and amps, right? Make sure I'm within proper voltage for my tariff, and make sure I'm not overloading any equipment. They don't worry about power flow. They don't have to worry about power flow. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the world's going to change. So the type of person that you have in your control centers, they're going to have new skills and new development. So we need to start thinking about what that, what we're calling is utility of the future. What does that really look like?
I don't want to look at our gas ladies out here. So
I'm electric.
Yeah, so that's happening. I know very heavily in the southern states, there are a lot of CNG stations, CNG vehicles. People are even installing their own compressors at their homes to fuel these type of vehicles. And then even the smart cars, we're trying to get some smart car folks through our downtown facility, and a lot of city buses are doing it. So it's an evolving, changing utility industry. Let me just say on the gas side, the United States is the largest producer of natural gas in the world. That happened last year. This year, we have become the world's largest oil producer. So there's not many people old enough to remember, like me, when President Carter went on TV and said we're running out of natural gas.
It's called Zap the Gap. You remember that, right? Yes. There were times when people in the electric business in particular thought this is an unreliable fuel. We can't power our gen stations with natural gas because we're running out of it. We are the world's largest producer. The shale plays in the Marcellus and Utica will change the world. They will change the world, so it's huge. And I'll just, one other thing, it's not in the distant, it's in the far distant future. But it's something that I've been watching for a long time, and it's called methane hydrates. So write that down, methane hydrates. So this is, way out there. But there are methane molecules trapped in ice particles. Yes, they're in the Arctic, but they're virtually around every coast in the world. We have more methane hydrates that can translate into natural gas than all of our other fossil fuels combined. So it's going to be years and years, and I hope we'll still be alive, but we'll be in the energy business. But when we can figure out a way to get those molecules and produce them and deliver them, it's going to be a real game changer. So that's 30 years out. But it's something that I watch.
But I think part of the question for you, everybody sitting here, is of all the issues that have been noted, which do you know about and which do you not? And which are important to your organization and how so? Where are the growth opportunities? What are the directions your organization is going in? It is your job to know those things. Because if you stay in your job box, your opportunities are going to be slim, and what you're really doing is you're waiting to be picked. So all of the kinds of things that have been mentioned here are growth opportunities for you, information that you can use in your dual hat positions, but also give you a head start in terms of where the growth possibilities are. Where might you go? Where might you volunteer? Where might you tap into folks who know these things, who may become mentors for you, who may become sponsors for you, and help you with respect to your development. So staying on top of these things really is very smart.
So somehow we all end up on a mailing list at some point. We get all these energy-related magazines. Those aren't decoration for your desk. Those aren't to make you look at read them. You know, I remember.
So you saw me.
I did. I was reading a magazine actually, and I saw my friend Angie, and I'm like, look at you, you're in a national magazine. But I've never heard of methane hydrate, so that's my assignment. Look that up. But read those magazines, because that's the best way to stay in tune with our industry.
That's true. That's true. That's good. I guess since we kind of went along those lines on the oil producer and all of that, Kathleen, maybe you can speak a little bit about the Keystone Pipeline, just a little bit, and kind of, because we talked about how we're going to transport and do all these different things, and I think that's a big issue, and you may not know a whole lot about it, but you hear about it because of Congress, so it might be something we should touch on just a little bit.
Okay, so the Keystone Pipeline is, is bringing, oil from the Canadian Rockies down to being produced and into the Gulf of Mexico and to be produced other places as well. It's a very controversial pipeline. Because it crosses the border of Canada, the Congress has said that they have authority to approve, and there's a question about whether that's true or not, but the fact is that they've asserted jurisdiction, so they probably will. I think the real question in my mind is the price of oil right now is so low, I wonder whether that pipeline will be built just because it won't be supported, economically.
So we'll kind of swap back a little bit, go back to talking about Congress. Maybe sure we can kind of chime in on this. How do you think, or how does a change in administration, we know we have a presidential election coming up, how do you think that will impact the energy industry and having that change?
It is really interesting. And when you start to look at the politics and where people's heads are at and where people's loyalties are at, where we're at today, we have a Congress and a president who don't get along all the time very well, right? And the president wants to go left and Congress wants to go right. It will be very interesting, I think, as we get to this next election of really what's going to happen. And I think we all need to really be looking at that. Looking at, everybody that's running, looking at what their position is on a lot of these different issues we have, because really our industry is going to change. And it's a matter of how much it's going to change or how fast it's going to change. And we've all seen, when you think about just the impact of, Sandy a couple of years ago and how much the government got involved in what we do for a living all the time. And that's happening more and more and more. Kathleen talked about the Clean Air Act and what's coming out of D.C. I think it's incumbent upon everyone in this room to really understand, who's really coming up for office and what their position is on these important things that are going to change the utility industry.
And that kind of leads me to my next topic, and Janine kind of honed in on that a little bit as far as what your involvement should be. So I'm curious, how many of you know what a PAC is? Raise your hand.
That's a pretty good number.
And they know what a PAC is, but I'm going to put you on the spot. How many belong to the PAC? Okay, that's good. The Political Action Committee, I remember on my first day on the job, I remember signing up on my first day, okay, so that you know. It was my first day. Because I knew the importance. I know in my role as a public affairs manager and being out in the communities that's important that I have some buy-in and some weigh-in. So that's how you have your local voice. But I thought we were going to have as many hands. I hope anybody wasn't lying. Let me look at your facial expression. Raise your hand again. How many belong to the PAC? Smile. I don't see crow's feet. Maybe you all can talk a little bit about how important it is to belong to a PAC and encourage your colleagues and your peers to participate as well.
And if you also will go ahead and tell us some things that PACs do. Because some people, the other part, don't know. What do they do and why is it important?
I will start with this. You know, most of the people in this country don't vote. So I'd start right there first. Go do that first. That's the first thing. I mean, that's such a privilege, and most people, and I know they're not in this room, but you know, people on your block don't vote. So, you know, get your friends, get your colleagues, get your family to do that. That's such an important right that you have. So the PAC. So that's you vote, so you have some skin in the game. When you put some dollars in the game, then you have more. Then you're more interested in following exactly what's happening, what this position is, what that position is. A PAC is simply an opportunity for your company to get involved in a financial way in the political process. The law doesn't allow, except in a couple of states, allow corporations, it doesn't allow any corporation to provide dollars in a federal campaign. In some states, corporate dollars are allowed, but a PAC allows you to share, get involved with your company in the political process on the issues that are important to your company, and those issues are important to you. So that's how I think of PAC.
I'm going to give you just a little different perspective, and that is, in addition to belonging to a PAC, or perhaps you're with an entity that doesn't have a PAC. For a number of years, I worked with municipal electric utilities, and so PAC is not part of that. But whether you have that option or not, you all belong to a community somewhere. And so the opportunity for you to get involved is in the education and the connections you can make with community leaders, with people who are active in communities, because the messages that come from communities make an impact on legislators at the state and federal levels. And so you have, again, the opportunity to wear those couple of hats on behalf of your organization, but also as a consumer. And so, in addition to participating in PAC, knowing what the issues are, how they impact your organization and consumers, for you to then carry that message to, perhaps certainly your neighbors, your friends, getting them out to vote, critical. But going a little beyond that to community groups, to business and professional groups, perhaps, where community leaders are, and deliver that message. Your message from the perspective of your utility and what's important and why it's important. That's a second or a third level of opportunity to have your message heard, be supportive of your organization, grow yourself, learn yourself, and you're also building your career. You're building yourself along the path. So great opportunities at a couple of different levels.
So I'll tell you a little story. So one thing I would also very much advocate, I'm sure every utility does this, when there are important bills, things that are down, you know, for us it's in Springfield, company has, you know, we need you down in Springfield, we need your support in Springfield, go. You know, to Janine's point, you know, I'll never forget the first time I went down to Springfield. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm an engineer and I'm an operator. You want me to talk to a group of lobbyists and legislators, really? But it's, you know, it's moving, you know, outside of your comfort zone maybe sometimes, right? And really all it's about is telling your story, telling the story of your company. People get very interested because, to our point earlier, they don't always understand. They only have one perspective, and you can give that other perspective.
You know, let me take up another example. Some of you are, you know, frontline employees. You're in the field. You're, you know, running construction crews. You're interfacing with those customers. And I can remember specifically, you know, working on pipe replacement jobs and people coming out of their homes. What are you doing? You know, I want you in my yard. And if you explain to them that you're not just doing it to do it, that there's safety behind it, there's reliability, you know, there's longevity, they appreciate that. And so those are things like, you know, take every advantage you get when you're talking to your customers to really educate them, because you'd be amazed. The more they know, the more they support you, and the more, you know, probably less likely they are to be mad at the next rate case when you're raising your rates to pay for those pipe replacements. You know, it's all connected. You know, I had a friend once show me her gas bill. She's like, what is all this? You know, and if you explain everything on that, if you can't explain your gas bill, figure out what those riders are. Figure out what each tariff is. Because it's telling your story. That's the best thing.
Right, and messaging is important. I know I'm at NIPSCO, and I guess because I deal with the communications department quite a bit. One of our communications persons here. But, you know, if you don't understand the message, reach out to somebody in your organization, because one thing I love about the position I'm in, because I was a little scared when I first started, because I'm like, I'm not a communications person, I don't do press releases and all that stuff, but have a clear message that's consistent amongst all of your employees. That has been one of the best things in having those talking points that we send out our press releases internally to our organization first, so that when they see their neighbor or their friend or they get a question, we try to vet with them first so that they can speak to it the same way that, you know, us in the public that we're doing it. So that's been one thing that I really, really stress. If you don't know who your communications folks are, get to know them, because you want to make sure you're not giving misinformation as well. Because I've seen that happen before my utility time. I've seen things go out and then an employee say something that was totally wrong, you know. So we don't want that either. We want to make sure we stress that, you know, be educated about it, but find the right resources to get the information out as well. So just want to stress that. Good information, not bad information. Before, I guess we'll transition a little bit. That was all a little heavy. I hope everybody's getting that. But I think now that we have you three here on the panel, we probably should transition to women in executive roles and talk a little bit about, you know, opportunities and career development. We've talked a lot this week about mentors, finding a mentor, whether it's somebody local, informal, formal, sponsors, things of that nature. So if you could give some advice, especially about mentoring, let's start there first, and what we can kind of offer from your perspective and your professional background. And I think we'll just start with Janine and work our way back this way.
The thing about mentoring, and it's been wonderful to hear this as a theme throughout. It's mentioned from the opening speakers, and it continues to be mentioned in a variety of places. We talked a little bit about it yesterday in the sessions. And when we do that, I read the faces of folks in the sessions. So sometimes I'll see a lot of this, and sometimes I'll see this kind of thing. But when it comes to mentors, I think we have so many preconceived notions of how it should be. And so taking a look at what you believe about mentors and making sure your views are up to date. Because we learn things and we pick up beliefs based upon the institutions we've been through, the families we're in, all of the folks who helped shape us. And sometimes we carry those beliefs to here, and they really are outdated. So thinking that you have to be picked, for example. Somebody's attacked you and say, I want to mentor you, I want to bring you along. No, that's outdated. Thinking that only somebody older than you can be a mentor. Outdated. The concept that's most important for you to think about, I believe, is how can you recruit mentors? Think about mentors and being a mentor. But getting a mentor in terms of recruiting them. Who can you learn from? Who can you, over a cup of coffee, learn something from? Who can you, over a lunch or maybe a couple of sessions, learn something from? And then learn how simply to approach them and say, hey, I'd like to learn this from you because you do it really well and I'd love to learn. 99.9 people out of 100 are going to be flattered to hear you say that. And they will take the time to help you learn whatever it is you want to learn because they know the importance of learning informally. Then you've got the opportunity to pass that on to somebody else. So bringing somebody else along by being a mentor is just as important.
Yeah, I mean, I think Janine summed it up better than I've heard in a long time. Mentoring is not a form, in most places, most successfully, is not a formal program. It's what you do on an informal basis. So in my career, I look at it in two ways. One, you know, in different parts of my career, somebody took a chance on me. Mostly it was men. that said, you know, so you're in this, you can probably do this. You know, that was a shock to me. So the other part of that is, and this is the advice I'm providing, don't undersell yourself. You look at something, somebody sees you in this place, you don't, you can get there. But that's what happened to me all throughout my career. Deb's nodding her head. People took a chance, and I got to a place and I figured it out. I got smart people around me, I got help, people didn't leave me in a lurch, we figured it out. But the most important thing is take the leap. If somebody says, you can do this other thing, give it a shot. Don't not do something because you think you have limitations. I think women do that more than anybody, more than men.
Trying to think, so what else am I going to add to what my two compadres up there said? I'll say a couple things. I have had mentors pretty much my whole career, both formal and informal. I am lucky enough, I think right now, that I am a mentor to many people. I am still being mentored. I'll actually give a little shout out to one of the HR ladies from ComEd that's actually in the audience. I am a fairly new executive. And when I actually started my executive position, I had my onboarding, and Rita Sokol, she told me, she goes, you need a mentor. And part of me stepped back for a second and said, I'm an executive. I need a mentor. And it was one of the best pieces of advice I had. And I have a sponsor, I have a mentor, and I am a mentor. And I think it's very important, and I think you heard a lot of ladies throughout the last 2 days talk a lot about giving back. A lot of us have had a lot of great opportunities. I'm very similar to Kathleen. I had people that truly believed in me and believed I could succeed. And it's really why I am where I am today. You don't do it on your own. It really truly takes an army of people to help you. And I want to just accentuate one of the things Kathleen said, because I truly believe this, and I've done this twice in my career. Take a risk. Don't be afraid to move into an area that you know nothing about, because you will grow so much in that area.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll allow more time for questions. I think we'll have more questions than if I can get. We have 2 mics. What's your other mic? All right. We'll get started. You got one already? All right. And if you don't mind, state your name and your company. All right.
My first name is Zainab. I go by Kyrol, and my last name is Lowell. I work for ComEd in Chicago. Thank you all for being here, but you kept mentioning the shift and change in the utility company in the next 5 to 10 years. And so the utility companies...
Hold on for 1 second. We're having trouble with hearing the mic.
Or just maybe speak louder. Okay.
Can
everybody hear me?
Can
everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yes. All right, so it's very dynamic lately, but also quite stagnant relative to the way we do business as usual. However, with the penetration of DER, we see consumers becoming more like prosumers, correct? This is going to affect regulatory cost, quality, and all of that among other factors. How do you think this shift is going to affect operational excellence for the utility companies in the next 5 years or 10 years?
So she's, you're talking about the shifts with all the smart energy?
With all the penetration of the DER, the distribution, the generated ones, and smart grid, all of that, smart things coming into the system, how is it going to affect all of the operational excellence that we currently have? Because yes, we keep saying we're making all these changes, but we keep doing business as usual for safety purposes, for quality purposes, cost purposes, regulatory. All those things are very difficult to change, but they're going to have to change.
Yeah, so all the safety and quality aspects of
Basically, distributed energy, how is this going to shape what we have today?
All right.
Okay. All right, I'll take a shot at that and defer to my colleagues. No, I think it's going to be huge. The one thing that we don't have, and we have lots of distributed energy, it's available, we've got solar everywhere, we've got wind everywhere, talking about microgrids. So we have all of that. What we don't have on the electric side, and what will be the thing that will change the future of electricity, is cost-effective, efficient battery storage. We do not have that today. We talked about Tesla's got a bunch of stuff happening. It's so cool. It is so cool, but it's not really going to be the thing. It's going to be something different. And when someone invents that battery storage, it will change the need for the grid that we have. It'll change how we generate electricity. It'll change how we use electricity. It'll change our homes. It'll change everything. It'll change transportation. We won't have gasoline for cars. We won't need it. It'll change virtually everything and how we think about it. But we don't have that. People have been working on it. Smart people in this room probably, have been working on this for 50 years, and we haven't gotten it yet. One of the things I look to is there was legislation passed in California last year that directed the 3 investor-owned utilities, big guys, big companies, to, by 2020, provide, I think it's 1.3 gigawatts of storage. So, so they put out bids. Hundreds and thousands of people have come up with ideas to meet this proposed rule, existing rule. It's legislation, and the rule just came out. And we might find the answer in meeting this California thing. Sometimes California is right. California might be the solution. So if we do find cost efficient, it's got to be efficient, it's got to be cost effective, and work. Battery storage, it will change the lives of every electric utility. It will change the lives of every person living here.
Anything to answer?
The only thing I would add is, you think about, look back 10 years, and you look at how far we've come. Many of us are all looking at, smart grids and, distribution automation and so much different technology that we have today versus where we were 10 years ago. And to Kathleen's point, it's either going to be, somebody's going to come up with that really, really great idea to solve a really big problem. Legislators are going to start mandating things, and we're going to have to figure it out. And 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot different. So, we need to all really be, looking at what's that next best thing. And then you need to think about, where you're at today and what you want to really be involved in tomorrow and what really interests you.
And how
because
our the next best thing is in this room.
That's right.
I mean, good that you got the talent pool.
Exactly. I mean, you think about, the electric utility, or I'll say the utility industry in general, is kind of sexy right now. There's a lot of really cool things going on. She's not worried.
And it was over here.
Good morning. My name is Lori Woods, and I'm here from Intren. My first year, so I'm very happy to be here. I just have a simpler question. What do you recommend as far as publications to read on a weekly or daily, weekly, monthly basis to stay up on our industry?
So that's a great question. She's asking about publications. Make some recommendations, but always tell us what's on your reading list. Like what is your news? All right. For me, I read. This is my 2 favorite publications. My favorite publication is Inside FERC. Okay. If you need something to do with it, no. I find it really well written and interesting. But it's a weekly, and it's just there's Gas Daily, there's Energy Daily, stuff like that. The other thing I would recommend is, it's got a terrible name, but it's called Public Utilities Fortnightly. I mean, they need a marketing person.
Public
Utilities Fortnightly. It's a monthly publication, but it has stories about top energy issues, gas and electric, and others that are more in depth. They're something you can really learn from. So I recommend those.
Yeah, the Fortnightly is also on my reading list. And the other thing to look at is really, there's a lot of, maybe on T&D World, you find out what other utilities are doing, or even, on top of that, going to different types of conferences, because there's a lot Now, the one thing I love about the utility business is we all share, right? You can go to even other conferences and learn about other things that are going on in our industry just by, attending a couple of conferences.
And that's a good time to go on NEA. We have the gas rodeo.
That's right.
We have all the different conferences that we have. I know that I belong to IEEE, so I don't know if you belong to any of your, ASME, different things like that. And if you get their publications, I get Power and Energy from IEEE. So, and I get it electronically and I get email. So if you join some of your professional organizations, they should have publications as well. So,
Janine, you have any?
I do. They're not technical in any way, but they are about growing yourself and expanding your mindset. First is an author by the name of Dan Pink, a color. If you have never heard of him, anything he writes is top-notch. A lot of his focus is on motivation. The first book that he came out with that really changed my way of thinking is a book called A Whole New Mind, which captures the huge shifts that our world and how we have to think about things have undergone in the last 10 to 15 years. A very recent book by a gentleman named Tom Rath, R-A-T-H, is called Are You Fully Charged? And he takes a look at energy centers that we have as human beings, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. And this all used to be the realm of touchy-feely stuff. But the beauty of this particular book is probably a quarter of it is backed with scientific notations and references. So this is all the realm of science. You all appreciate science, I know you do. So, and that's very recently out. It's a very small book, a quick read, lots of development options and new ways of thinking. So those are my contributions.
I also remind folks that your associations, the American Gas Association and the Electric Institute, both have monthly publications that are free to your company. So those also have some interesting articles. Not as in-depth as, Public Utility Fortnightly, and not as fun and interesting as Inside Firm.
all right. Other questions? Oh, we got one up here.
One down there.
One up here too.
Where are you going?
Right.
Raise your hand. We're not mind readers. Actually, I am a mind reader.
Good morning. Thanks again for your participation. Liz with NIPSCO and Go NIPSCO, Kathleen and Angie. So thank you. I would like to know more about, as we're all here, up and coming leaders, as well as accomplished professionals. Tell me more about building your team. You talk about taking risks and taking on new opportunities. So that's great, and if you're making that decision to go into something else, what are other things to think about when we want to surround ourselves with a great team?
Sure. It's a really great question. Someone told me once in my career, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And I always remember that. It really is. You can't know everything. And as you continue to move up in the organization, you become more distant from kind of the nuts and bolts of what's happening every day. And that's okay as long as you have people that you know and you trust and you respect that they're doing the right thing and they're making the right decisions. So for me, it's always about surrounding myself with people that are, smarter than me, and people that don't necessarily always think like me. I do not like to have people that work for me that always are going to agree with me every time I say something. For me, it's all about challenging me. I'm not always right. I'll always have an opinion, but I'm not always right. So really having that, the team and the people around you that can support you in what you do.
I would suggest maybe think about being a giver, and this is beyond a work team, for example. We talk a lot about mentors and teams, but this is more about connecting with other people in order to give something to them of value. frequently we can't see for ourselves what we are and how we are and what our gifts are and talents are. And so what I encourage you to do, and I think that ultimately this is how we grow the team of support people as we like. When you see something in somebody else that is valuable, that's good, that is a wonderful quality, tell them. Tell them about that. Say, hey, it was really great when you did this. Or, I noticed this in you. Or I think you'd be really good because of this particular characteristic, or whatever it might be. I think that we too often think there has to be a formal reason or something to do that. Yet a lot of what gets in all of our way is a lack of confidence, a lack of self-efficacy, a belief in our own abilities. And so I think if we can look at giving in small little steps and small little pieces, I think we create our network and our team, and that's just where we need to go.
Any other questions?
Good morning. My name is Angie and I source Columbia Gas. And for the last 3 days, I'm learning the overshadowed Angie at NiSource. So heads up and props to Angie Nelson and Deuitch. My question has to do with distributed generation again. And I'm definitely open to having my lack of knowledge elevated, but my question centers around, is there some type of detriment or negativity to the end user consumer who is an electric customer as a result of the individuals who will be receiving the benefits and the credits of their solar energy? Because and trust me, my limited knowledge, but the way it was explained to me, that as these solar customers, their energy isn't working for them, they then draw from our actual grid. When they've been given the opportunity to ask the electric companies to kind of pay them for the energy that they have provided. And part two of the question, if there is a negative benefit, is it our socioeconomic challenged customers who may pay the largest cost?
So I think that negative impact can either be financial or even quality of service.
Yeah. You said you didn't really know about it. I think you summarized it really well.
I know you're a yes girl. Well, she's my good team. What can I say?
You cannot pay people to compliment.
I didn't even prepare for that.
I think there is that argument. It's interesting because a distributed generation provider needs the grid because we don't have this storage invented yet. So it's only available, for solar or wind or whatever when it's sunny and when it's blowing, and you can't store it. So you can't store electricity, and that's a big deal. So that person relies on the grid more than ever. They say that they're removed from the grid, but they're actually relying on the grid more than ever. And so to the extent that they're not paying for maintaining that grid, and other people are picking up that cost, it is a societal problem. Eventually, I think this will all get worked out, but right now, I do think there is a problem.
I think there's a lot of questions, and I had mentioned that kind of has a multifaceted bill that we put forth. And the reason that we did that, we understand. I mean, we're saying we're going to spend $250 to $300 million on microgrids. It's a lot of money, right? That goes down to the consumer. But we have other parts of our bill. To your very point, the grid is not going away. Someone has to pay for it. Someone has to continue to pay for it and maintain it. So we actually have an additional piece of our legislation that's looking at, well, how do we really build customers today, right? And do we need to really change that for the very reason that you don't want, the poor person who, is barely getting by and is living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford all this fancy technology, right? And how do we make sure that we're looking out for them as well? Because it really is truly about our entire customer.
Next question. All right, we got one up here. Take this one first.
Hello, my name is Eva Koshitsa, and I'm with Burns McDonald out of our Chicago office. So it's actually my first year here, and it's been amazing so far. My question actually takes it to the next level. I was wondering, what is your take on wireless energy? So now there's all these new charging systems for, it's more so cell phones right now, but how do you see that affecting the utility industry?
Wireless technology,
Yeah, so there's all these new ways to charge your cell phone, where for instance, you don't have to have it plugged into the wall, you can have it.
Portable chargers.
Portable chargers, you can have it inside the room, I think within about 5
portable
feet.
chargers.
So it's not necessarily plugging it into your phone. There's battery systems where it's in proximity, you don't have to have it connected. Like you can have it on the plate, you can have it within 5 feet.
So that's kind of that new technology.
Yeah. How do you see that growing and maybe affecting the grid, or not necessarily having a grid?
I guess I'm
going to invite you to the stage and talk about that.
Yeah, I'm opening up to the audience.
Call out a friend.
If we can think about it, we can invent it.
Yeah.
So we don't have that technology today, but we have it on the cell phone side, but in terms of whether that could be on the electricity side more broadly, you know, I think we could. I mean, I'm still waiting for somebody to invent this cost-effective storage idea. Battery idea.
Thank you for the question. All right, Nicole.
Hi, my name is David Gear, and I'm from NIPSCO. My question is around talent development. So we've talked a lot about why we brought this conference together and we started the conference. Can you tell me a little bit about how we're marketing ourselves to the young minds, college student, high school? How are we bringing that next generation to our industry?
We have to bring the sexy word back.
It has to be interesting.
It is a big deal. Graduates, huge do.
I'll tell you, one of the things that we do from an Exelon perspective, we are very, very trying to be very, very influential in a lot of STEM. Right? You know, we get involved in a lot of the, you know, grammar schools, high schools, you know, down from, you know, when kids really start to get interested. One of the kind of cool things that we did at ComEd last year, we had our first year, we had an icebox derby. What it was we took a recycled refrigerator. We had 10 girls from local high schools. We paired them up with engineers, and they made little iceboxes, right? So, and we had a race. And everybody had to race their icebox. And it was the coolest thing, because you had girls that are sitting there, wow, I can use power tools, this is pretty cool, right? You know, and you get them interested and excited about, you know, engineering and math, that I can actually build things. So I think, you know, we really need to get involved in more programs like that to really try and drive that interest.
Yeah, and I can talk more from the NISORS NIPSCO perspective. I know that we sponsor a lot of all-girl, or at least I have recently, all-girl robotics teams in the high schools. We have a new program, an Energy Academy at one of the county trade schools for the high school, which is one of the only ones. There aren't that many in the United States, but we have one of the first ones. And so what we try to do is push those efforts on STEM. You know, my daughter, she's sitting back there, she took a welding camp last summer, and she was like, I don't want to go. But then, you know, she came home with all these nice things that she made and had the headgear. But, you know, I think we just expose people of diverse backgrounds to STEM, female, minority, whatever it might be. I think it creates a better workforce environment. I know last year we sponsored at the conference for college students in Denver, and maybe our leadership team should think about that again. I know that one of our colleagues who passed on was really, really a heavy advocate of bringing up the younger generation and including them in our conference. And maybe that's something we think about for Houston, but I think it's just exposure. Making sure, I was exposed early on. I went to summer camp for minority students at Purdue University in 7th grade. And I knew then I was going to be an electrical engineer. So it's just those little things that happen, and if you can do that to 1 or 2 people once a year, I mean, it's 400 of us in here, right? So that's 1,000 people we should be touching at least each year, right?
Is that assignment number 4?
That's assignment number 4, right? So,
and you can do it in your children's classrooms.
church.
Start there. Start there. I mean, I feel like the sooner we get started getting people interested in our business, the better. Where the utility industry has one of the highest average ages of their workforce, and so many of us of my age will be long retired, and we need to explain to our young folks that this is a great place to work. It's a great place to have a career, and we need to start as early as we can.
Would you go ahead and say too, we're talking about shifts and changes, a lot of companies are trying to be more appealing and attractive to that younger generation with flex schedules, with benefits, with, absolutely just engaging them in activities that are important to them.
And all the Generation Y folks, raise your hands. She'll make you stand up and do jumping jacks. I won't do that, I won't do that.
But I think it's all of our responsibility. It's a great question, and it should be on the list for all of us to do. Find a place to plug in and talk to young people about what a great career opportunity it is to work in our industry. Thank you. One question.
Hello, my name is Teresa Hawk, and I'm here with Consumers Energy. It's been my first year, and it's absolutely amazing. But I want to just take that question and go a little bit deeper. If you look at these benchmarking metrics, the numbers are not where I feel like they should be, especially with how many talented women are in the building. But what are we doing from a company perspective we don't know what we don't know. And what are we doing to implement processes and strategies to unleash or recognize those barriers that some of these individuals may be facing, minority employees and the low numbers that we have here, what barriers they're facing and how we can remove those barriers so people can really start, working at their true talents or reaching their highest potential and start taking over corporate America, because I think we need to be there. So I'm just wondering, what things have you guys done in your companies, or what do you think we can be doing to take back into our organizations to start discovering the stuff we don't know and unlocking those unique barriers that people are facing?
Let me just kind of do a little explanation on this graphic, because if you haven't come up to look at it, the vase at the bottom is supposed to be all employees, men and women. And then the flower coming out of the vase represents how the women are broken up. So that large yellow section is support roles, so those are your front lines, etc. And then you have engineering operations is the next big, and then supervisor is small, and then you have senior leadership, which is like your VPs, your EVPs, and even CEOs who are counted, and that's 0.67% of what was surveyed is that CEO level. And there's some women in this room that work at Deuitch. You're one of the very few to have a female CEO in the Fortune 500. And she's not an engineer. I just put those two together. So that doesn't answer your question. I just wanted to kind of go through that a little bit more, and I'll let you guys continue the actual question.
I know at NiSource, we have 2 great senior sponsors, in Carrie Hyman and Violet Sistaveras. And so we talk about C-suite, and we have several in our organization, which is a plus for us. But we have 3 programs. We have what we call Building the Next Generation, and it's basically for women. We have a conference like this each year in Chicago where we bring 250 of our female leaders into Chicago from all over the company. And then the second piece of that, we have our ERG Dawn. But then the third piece...
Employee resource groups.
Yeah, employee resource groups. I think just about everybody has one. And then the third piece, which I've had an opportunity to participate, is our Women in Leadership Mentorship Program. You guys met my mentor the other day, who was here from West Virginia, where we go through a formal program where we are being professionally developed with resources outside of the company to come in and kind of push us, in goal setting and what's the next step and how do we do certain things. So we have a robust I would say, program in that. And then we also have what we call Leadership NISORS as well. So I think we're really working on those succession planning and building the next group of leaders within NISORS.
And I think I'm going to add from some things I've read here lately. We just need to get more women on boards in general, and that's where they get identified and get, built up. And so, I don't know how we increase those people, but it needs.
I think you have to have more of us in the mix. And so to me, it does start with grade school and talking about being an engineer, having a future, what the utility business can offer. I mean, I think just if we get that, if we get a bigger mass of people in the workforce, those numbers aren't bad considering that, what percentage of women engineers do we have in our companies? It's a very small number. We need to grow that number before we can get this under control.
We got time for one last question. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, Amy?
They're like, when's the next parade?
She has one in the back.
Yes. Sorry, everybody. Okay.
She's the Y generation.
This is a big question. Thank you all for the conference so far. It's been based heavily on mentorship, sponsors, and coaching. And I thought I understood a lot about it until the networking conference or event last night. And somebody talked about sponsorship. And it seems like to be sponsored, they have to solicit you or upper leadership has to find you out. But if they're not finding you, how do you go about asking to be sponsored? I understand the mentorship part of it. But you don't want to be selfish and really asking for a sponsor. How do you politely ask someone to sponsor you?
So the question is regarding sponsorship and how do you not become that person who's asking everybody to be your sponsor, are you my mother? Are you my mother? Do you remember that? And I want to give a personal example on, I don't, this is Clarissa's opinion. You don't have to formally ask for a sponsor. And sometimes I think the best way to get a sponsor is to be a sponsor. Be that person. And don't identify yourself going, hello, my name is Clarissa, I'll be your sponsor today. You find those people you're surrounded by the educated, those people that are smarter than you, and you support them. So when you're in those project groups, and you identify the people who have the best resources to fill the roles in projects, and I do think when you give, I think you get more. Right. And then people see you giving, and then that manager or that CEO or the VP that says, wow, she's investing in other people, I'm going to invest in her. So I always challenge people instead of, please be my mentor, please be my sponsor, just you be the mentor. You step out. Even if you're a new employee, go find a student, go, neighbor kid, or, anybody, maybe you can sponsor your husband. They might be
and stepping out, really. And so you are seeing in different, from different perspectives, you're expanding your perspectives, your mindset, and how you see things. But the point Clarissa just made is perfect. You give and you get. And so what goes around comes around. So giving, stepping out, being a mentor, if you will, calling others out, pointing out people's strengths and value, bringing them in. I think that's a great way. You're being noticed and you're out of your job box. That's very important.
The only other couple comments I'll end with is, I think really, stepping out of your comfort zone is really important. I think that gets you noticed. And I think, volunteering to be on projects, right? And people see you. And, you're not just maybe that engineer that does a really, really good job, and your boss knows that, but maybe everybody else doesn't necessarily know that. But, you raise your hand and say, I'd love to do that. I'll volunteer to do that. And really, expanding your horizons that way, I think really helps get you exposed.
I agree. Okay, well, we're wrapping up now, so I would like to thank everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed our